The Lagos sun blazed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Chike Okonkwo's penthouse in Victoria Island, casting golden light across Italian marble floors and priceless Benin bronze sculptures. At 36, Chike stood at the apex of West African wealth. His tech empire stretched from Nairobi to Dakar. His investments touched every sector from telecommunications to real estate. He wore his success like the perfectly tailored Ibada draped across his broad shoulders. Bold, expensive, impossible to ignore. Tonight, his penthouse resembled a scene from a Nollywood blockbuster. Nigeria's elite gathered in a kaleidoscope of color. Women draped in vibrant Ankara fabrics with intricate geli head wraps towering like crowns. Men in embroidered kaftans heavy with gold thread, their wrists glittering with diamond-encrusted watches. The air hummed with Afro beats, punctuated by the clink of champagne flutes and the rustle of silk against marble. Chike moved through the celebration with the easy confidence of a lion surveying his pride. His latest acquisition, a controlling stake in Ghana's largest telecommunications company, had just been finalized. Another conquest, another victory. He accepted congratulations with a practiced smile, his dark eyes revealing nothing of the restlessness that had begun gnawing at his spirit. "Chike, my brother." A familiar voice cut through the music. Tunde Adeyemi appeared, resplendent in a crimson brocade kaftan with matching fila cap tilted at a rakish angle. Tunde was the only person who could challenge Chike without consequence. They'd grown up together in Surulere, back when neither had money for bus fare, let alone private jets. Their friendship had been forged in those hungry years and tempered by decades of competition. "Tunde," Chike acknowledged, raising his glass of cognac. "I see you're still trying to outshine everyone with your clothes," says the man wearing an 2 million Igbada. Tunde laughed, his eyes gleaming with familiar mischief. "But I didn't come to discuss fashion. I came to propose something interesting." The crowd around them sensed the shift in energy. In Lagos society, everyone knew that when Chike and Tunde faced off, entertainment was guaranteed. "I'm listening," Chike said, setting down his glass. Tunde's grin widened. "We've competed in everything, haven't we? Business deals, cars, even who could throw the most extravagant parties. But I've thought of something you've never tried to win, which is marriage." Tunde let the word hang in the air. "I bet you in 2 billion. That's roughly $5 million. That you couldn't marry a woman who isn't your usual type. Someone who wouldn't normally make you look twice. And you'd have to stay married for 6 months. Real marriage, sharing a home, acting like a couple." The penthouse seemed to quiet, though the music still played. Chike felt his competitive instincts flare to life like a match struck in darkness. "And 2 billion? Chike's eyebrow arched. "You're serious." "Completely serious," Tunde confirmed. 6 months of marriage to a woman I choose. No separate houses, no running away when things get difficult. A real marriage. And when you succeed, you'll have bragging rights until we're old men sitting under the baobab tree. Chike studied his friend's face. The money meant nothing. He earned that in a week. But the challenge, the game, the opportunity to prove, once again, that Chike Okonkwo could conquer anything, that was irresistible. "And if I refuse?" Chike asked, though he already knew his answer. "Then everyone here will know that the great Chike Okonkwo, who claims he can win at anything, was afraid of a simple marriage bet." Laughter bubbled up from Chike's chest, rich and confident. "Afraid? Tunde, you know me better than that. I accept your challenge. 6 months. Choose your candidate carefully, because I'm going to make this look easy." Tunde's grin turned calculating. "Perfect, because I already have someone in mind. Her name is Amara Nwosu." 3 days later, Chike sat in a bustling Lagos cafe in Lekki, the air thick with the aroma of suya and jollof rice. Tunde had sent him a single photo, a woman with warm, intelligent eyes, full-figured with generous curves, her hair in beautiful braids adorned with colorful beads. The brief description read, "Social worker, runs a youth center in Ajagunal, not impressed by wealth, stubborn as a goat." Chike had looked at the photo for exactly 10 seconds before putting his phone away. This was business, nothing more, another deal to close, another victory to claim. When Amara walked into the cafe, Chaik immediately noticed her presence. She wore a striking Ankara dress in bold geometric patterns of orange, purple, and gold, the fabric hugging her curves confidently. Her braids were woven with golden thread that caught the light, and elaborate gold jewelry adorned her neck and wrists. Not delicate, apologetic pieces, but bold African designs that announced her heritage proudly. Her makeup was flawless, highlighting her smooth dark skin, and her orange gelly was wrapped elegantly, not towering high but sophisticated and stylish. She spotted him immediately and crossed the room with purposeful strides, her hips swaying naturally, her head held high. There was no hesitation, no self-consciousness, no attempt to make herself smaller. "You must be Chaika Okonkwo," Amara said, extending her hand before he could stand. Her nails were painted a vibrant coral, perfectly manicured. "And you must be Amara Nwosu," Chaik replied, taking her hand. Her grip was firm, confident, her palm soft, but her handshake strong. She settled into the chair across from him, and Chaik found himself momentarily unsettled by the directness of her gaze. Most women looked at him with admiration, desire, calculation. Amara looked at him like she was reading a book she'd already guessed the ending to, and wasn't particularly impressed by the plot. "Let's not waste time with pleasantries," Amara began, folding her hands on the table. Her gold bangles clinked softly. "I know about the bet. I know Tund challenged you to marry someone outside your type. I know you agreed because your ego won't let you walk away from a competition. And I know you expect this to be a simple 6-month transaction where you throw money around until I fall in line like one of your business acquisitions." Chaik sat back, genuinely surprised for the first time in years. "Tund told you everything." "Tund is more honest than you'd expect," Amara replied, a slight smile playing at her lips. "He thought I deserved to know the truth before meeting you. He also thought I'd refuse." "But you didn't." "No, I didn't." "Why?" Chaik asked, his curiosity genuinely piqued. Why would an intelligent woman agree to such an arrangement? Amara's smile faded slightly, replaced by something Chaik couldn't quite read, sadness mixed with determination. "Let's just say I have my reasons. They're personal, and they're mine. You don't need to know them to complete your bet." "Fair enough," Chaik said, though he felt frustrated by her secrecy. He was used to reading people, to understanding their motivations and leveraging their weaknesses. Amara was already proving to be more complex than anticipated. "So you're willing to go through with this? 6 months of marriage." "Under certain conditions," Amara said firmly, her voice carrying the same strength as her handshake. "I want my own space in whatever home we share. I want to continue my work at the youth center without interference. I want respect, even if I don't have your love. And when the 6 months are over, we walk away cleanly. No drama, no complications, no attempts to extend this arrangement." Chaik considered her terms. They were reasonable, surprisingly businesslike. "Agreed. Anything else?" "Yes," Amara said, her eyes meeting his with that same intense gaze. "Don't try to change me, Chaik. Don't try to make me into one of those stick-thin models you usually parade around with. I am who I am. A full-figured Igbo woman who likes her food and isn't apologizing for taking up space in this world. That's not going to change just because I'm wearing your ring." Something about the way she said it, with such fierce pride and underlying vulnerability, made Chaik pause. "I wouldn't dream of it," he said, though even as he spoke, he wondered if that was true. Their second meeting took place at Chaik's lawyer's office in Ikoyi, a sleek modern building with views of Lagos Harbor. The prenuptial agreement was thick as a Lagos phone book. Amara read every page carefully, asked intelligent questions about property rights and inheritance laws, and signed with a steady hand. No tears, no second thoughts, no romantic delusions. "We're getting married next week," Chaik informed her as they left the office, his driver waiting by a gleaming black Mercedes. "Small ceremony at the registry, just the legal requirements. I've already arranged everything." "Of course you have," Amara replied, adjusting her pink and silver Ankara dress that shimmered in the afternoon sun. "You're used to controlling every situation, aren't you?" "It served me well so far," Chaik said, not bothering to hide his arrogance. Amara stopped walking and turned to face him, her elaborate silver jewelry catching the light. Chike, let me tell you something. I'm not one of your business deals. I'm not a company you can acquire or a competitor you can crush. The next 6 months are going to teach you something you've never learned. And what's that? Chike asked, crossing his arms over his expensive kaftan. That some things can't be won, Amara said softly. Some things can only be earned. The wedding took place exactly 1 week later at the Ikoyi registry. Chike wore a magnificent white agbada embroidered with gold thread, the fabric hand-woven in Oso oak. Amara wore a stunning traditional Igbo wedding dress, a blouse and wrapper in rich coral and gold George fabric that hugged her curves beautifully, with intricate beading across the bodice. Her braids were styled elaborately with coral beads, and her neck was adorned with multiple strands of traditional coral beads that designated her as a bride. Her makeup was bold and beautiful, dark lipstick, dramatic eyes, and her skin glowing against the vibrant fabrics. Tund served as their witness, wearing a knowing smile that irritated Chike more than he wanted to admit. The registrar pronounced them husband and wife in less than 15 minutes. There was no kiss, no celebration, no joy, just two people legally bound together by a bet and secrets neither would speak. After the ceremony, Chike drove Amara to his penthouse in his red Ferrari, because even in a fake marriage, he couldn't resist showing off. She was quiet during the drive, watching Lagos blur past, the chaos of yellow Danfos, the hawkers selling everything from phone chargers to plantain chips, the contrast of gleaming new buildings next to aging structures. "Welcome home," Chike said as they entered the penthouse. The space was massive, a temple to his success. Every piece of furniture was designer. Every artwork carefully curated. African masks worth millions hung beside contemporary pieces by renowned African artists. The floors were Italian marble, the fixtures gold-plated, the view breathtaking. Amara walked through the space slowly, her Ankara dress swishing softly, her jewelry catching the light from the floor-to-ceiling windows. Her expression remained neutral, unimpressed. "It's very you," she finally said. "Is that a compliment?" "It's an observation," Amara replied. "Where's my space?" Chike showed her to a bedroom suite at the opposite end of the penthouse from his own quarters. It had its own bathroom with a marble jacuzzi, a sitting area, and a balcony overlooking Lagos. He'd had it decorated by an expensive interior designer, filled with what he thought African elegance meant. More masks, zebra print cushions, and animal-themed artwork. Amara stood in the doorway for a long moment before speaking. 6 months, Chike. Not a day more. 6 months, he agreed. The first few weeks of marriage were an exercise in frustration for Chike Okonkwo. He had entered this arrangement with absolute confidence that he would maintain control, that Amara would eventually bend to his will like everyone else in his life. He was spectacularly wrong. When he presented her with expensive jewelry, a diamond and sapphire necklace that cost more than most Lagos homes, she politely declined. "It's beautiful, but not my style. I prefer traditional African jewelry with meaning." He suggested shopping at the exclusive boutiques in Victoria Island, where his usual companions spent his money freely. She laughed. "I have a tailor in Balogun Market who makes my clothes perfectly. I don't need your designers." When he arranged for them to attend high society events, exclusive parties where politicians and oil magnates mingled, she often found excuses to stay home. She preferred sitting on her balcony with a book or video calling the children from her youth center in Ajagunal. She continued working every day, leaving early each morning in her own modest car, returning in the evening with stories about the family she helped, children who needed school fees, mothers who needed job training, communities that needed clean water. "You don't have to work anymore," Chike told her one morning over breakfast. She'd prepared EBA and egusi soup, refusing to let his personal chef cook for her. "I have more money than we could spend in 10 lifetimes. You could focus on other things." Amara looked up from her meal, her eyes steady. "Other things? Like what, Chike? Shopping? Getting my nails done? Becoming another Lagos trophy wife with nothing to do but spend her husband's money? I don't work because I need money. I work because those children need someone who cares. Because those families need someone who shows up. Can you understand that? I understand that you're making this more difficult than it needs to be, Chaik replied, his frustration growing. Good, Amara said simply, returning to her food. But Chaik began noticing things that troubled him beyond their constant friction. Amara would sometimes skip meals, claiming she wasn't hungry. She declined invitations to expensive restaurants, preferring simple home-cooked meals. On several occasions, he found her sitting on her balcony in the evening, looking exhausted in a way that seemed deeper than just tiredness from work. One evening, Chai came home early from a business meeting and heard Amara on the phone in her room. Her door was slightly ajar, and he paused in the hallway, knowing he shouldn't listen but unable to stop himself. I know, Mama. I'm being careful, Amara was saying, her voice soft and weary. Yes, I'm taking all my medications. Chaik's hand froze on his doorknob. No, he doesn't know. There's no reason to tell him. It's only 6 months, and then everything goes back to normal. I can handle 6 months, Mama. I promise. Medications? Wouldn't he know? Chaik wanted to burst into the room and demand answers, but something held him back. Amara had made it clear she valued her privacy, and despite his growing curiosity, he found himself respecting that boundary in a way he never had before. Their arguments became more frequent and more intense. Chaik's attempts to control the situation met Amara's immovable resistance, and neither was willing to give ground. Why won't you let me in? Chaik demanded one night after Amara had refused another invitation to an important business gala. Why do you insist on keeping these walls between us? Because you wouldn't understand, Amara shot back, her eyes flashing with emotion. Her orange head wrap had come slightly loose, revealing more of her beautiful braids. You live in a world where everything can be bought, where every problem has a solution if you throw enough money at it. Some things aren't like that, Chaik. Some things just are. Try me, Chaik said, his voice dropping to something almost pleading. Maybe I'm not as shallow as you think. Amara studied his face for a long moment, and Chaik saw something in her eyes that looked like regret. Maybe you're not, she said softly. But that doesn't change anything. Despite the tension, Chaik found himself increasingly drawn to Amara. It wasn't just physical attraction, though he was beginning to find her beautiful in ways that surprised him. The way she moved with such natural grace despite her size, the way her face lit up when she talked about the children at her center, the way she carried herself with such dignity and pride. It was something deeper that confused and frustrated him. She was intelligent, passionate about her work, quick-witted in their verbal sparring matches, and completely immune to his usual charms. She treated him like a person, not a bank account, and that was both refreshing and terrifying. He started paying closer attention to her daily routines, watching in ways he didn't quite understand. Amara sometimes gripped the kitchen counter when she stood too quickly. She occasionally took deep breaths like she was fighting dizziness. Once he saw her wince and press her hand to her chest, a flash of pain crossing her face before she composed herself. Are you all right? He'd asked that time, genuine concern in his voice. Fine, she'd replied quickly, adjusting her beautiful blue ochre dress. Just a muscle cramp. Chaik didn't believe her, but he didn't push. Not yet. 3 months into their arrangement, things came to a head at the annual Lagos Business Awards Gala, the social event of the season. Chaik had insisted they attend together. It's important for my image, he'd argued, and Amara had finally agreed. She emerged from her room that evening, and Chaik's breath caught. She wore a stunning emerald green evening gown in traditional George fabric, the kind worn by Igbo royalty. The dress was expertly tailored to celebrate her curves rather than hide them. A fitted bodice with elaborate beading that caught the light like stars, and a flowing skirt that moved like water. Her hair was styled in an elaborate updo with golden ornaments woven through her braids. Her makeup was dramatic and beautiful. Bold lips, expertly contoured cheekbones, and eyes that seemed to glow. She wore elaborate gold jewelry, traditional coral and gold beads around her neck, gold bangles on her wrists, and chandelier earrings that framed her face. She looked like Igbo royalty, like a queen who had stepped out of ancient NRI kingdom legends. You look, Chaik struggled for words, something that rarely happened to him. You look absolutely stunning. Amara smiled slightly, adjusting one of her bangles. Don't sound so surprised. Did you think I couldn't dress up? No, Chike shook his head. You look beautiful, Amara. Really beautiful. The gala was held at Eco Hotel's Crystal Ballroom, filled with Lagos's elite, politicians in expensive agbatas, society women dripping with jewelry, businessmen making deals between courses of lobster and champagne. Chike moved through the crowd with practiced ease, introducing Amara as his wife, conducting business between toasts. Amara stayed close but quiet, observing everything with those intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Chike found himself proud to have her on his arm, proud of the way she carried herself with such dignity and grace. Then he heard it, a cluster of women standing near the champagne fountain, their voices carrying across the room despite the music. That's Chike Okonkwo's wife? I heard it was some kind of bet. She's so large. What could he possibly see in her? Money can't buy taste, apparently. Look at her, taking up all that space in that dress. Their cruel laughter cut through the ambient noise like a knife. Chike felt rage building in his chest, hot and immediate, but before he could move, he realized Amara had heard them too. Her face remained composed, but he saw the flash of pain in her eyes, the slight tremor in her hand as she set down her champagne flute. Years of hurt lived in that moment. Every cruel comment, every judgmental stare, every time someone had made her feel less than beautiful. Excuse me, Amara said quietly, starting to walk away. Chike grabbed her hand gently but firmly. No, don't give them that satisfaction. He turned toward the group of women, Lagos society wives, draped in expensive lace and osso oak, their own insecurities masked by designer labels and fake smiles. The entire ballroom seemed to sense the shift in atmosphere, conversations dying as heads turned to watch. Ladies, Chike said, his voice cutting through the silence like ice. I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. Let me clarify something for everyone here. He pulled Amara closer, his arm wrapping protectively around her waist. My wife is worth more than everyone in this room combined. While you sit here drinking champagne and gossiping, she's an adjugal helping children get educations, helping families get clean water, actually making a difference in people's lives. She dedicates herself to people who need it, not throwing parties to stroke our own egos. His voice grew stronger, carrying through the crystal ballroom. She has more integrity, more intelligence, more genuine beauty and strength than any of you could hope to possess. She is royalty, Igbo royalty, and she wears it better than your designer clothes could ever make you look. And anyone who has a problem with my wife can leave my presence immediately. The room was utterly silent. The gossiping women looked mortified, some trying to disappear into the crowd. Other guests stared, some with approval, others with shock. We're leaving, Chike announced to the room. He took Amara's hand and led her out of the gala, past the crystal chandeliers and through the lobby, ignoring the whispers and stares that followed them. Outside, under the warm Lagos night, sky heavy with the promise of rain, Amara finally spoke. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, Chike said firmly, his anger still simmering. No one talks about my wife that way. No one. Your wife for 6 months, Amara reminded him softly, but her voice lacked its usual edge. Chike looked at her, really looked at her, standing there in her emerald George fabric and golden jewelry, looking like the queen she was. And he realized something that terrified him. Maybe I don't want it to be just 6 months anymore. Amara's eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. Don't say things you don't mean, Chike. I mean it, he insisted, stepping closer. Amara. She pressed a finger to his lips, her coral nail polish gleaming. Take me home, Chike. Please. The ride back to the penthouse was silent, heavy with unspoken words. Chike kept stealing glances at Amara, trying to understand the sadness he saw in her face. Something was wrong, something beyond their arranged marriage, and he was determined to find out what it was. They had barely entered the penthouse when it happened. Amara took 3 steps into the living room and suddenly swayed, her hand reaching out for the wall, but finding nothing. Chike lunged forward, catching her just as her legs gave out. Amara. His voice was sharp with panic. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow and labored. Her eyes fluttered, unfocused. Amara, stay with me. Look at me. Her eyes opened slightly. Chike, don't talk, just breathe. He was already pulling out his phone, dialing emergency services with shaking hands. I need an ambulance now. My wife collapsed. Victoria Island, King Tower penthouse. Hurry. The next 20 minutes were the longest of Chike's life. He held Amara in his arms on the cool marble floor, terrified to move her, but equally terrified to let her go. She drifted in and out of consciousness, murmuring words in Igbo he couldn't quite catch. When the paramedics arrived, they worked quickly, checking her vitals and loading her onto a stretcher. The penthouse that usually seemed so grand now felt cold and empty as they wheeled her away. I'm riding with her, Chike insisted, following them into the elevator. Are you family? One paramedic asked. I'm her husband, Chike said, and realized it was the first time he'd said those words and truly meant them. At Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Chike paced the waiting room like a caged leopard. He called Tund, who arrived within 30 minutes. He tried calling Amara's mother, but couldn't find her number in Amara's phone. He felt helpless, useless, terrified in a way he'd never experienced before. Not when his first business failed, not when he nearly lost everything in the 2008 crash, never like this. Finally, a doctor emerged, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a tired expression. Mr. Okonkwo, I'm Dr. Folake Adegoke. I've been treating your wife. Is she all right? What happened? Chike demanded, approaching her immediately. Dr. Adegoke gestured to a quieter corner of the waiting room, away from other anxious families. Her expression was serious, professional, but tinged with sympathy. Your wife is stable now, but we need to discuss her condition. Were you aware that Amara has been dealing with serious health complications? Chike felt the ground shift beneath him. What complications? Amara has severe hypertension and early-stage heart disease, complicated by her weight and family history. Dr. Adegoke explained carefully. Her heart is under significant strain. The medications she's been taking help manage the symptoms, but her condition has been deteriorating. Deteriorating? Chike's voice was barely a whisper. How long has this been going on? According to her medical records, she was diagnosed about 8 months ago, Dr. Adegoke said gently. The condition is manageable with significant lifestyle changes, weight loss, diet modification, regular exercise, and continued medication. But if left untreated or if she continues her current lifestyle, she paused. The prognosis is concerning. 8 months ago, before their marriage, before the bet, suddenly, Amara's behavior made terrible, perfect sense. Her acceptance of the marriage, her insistence on a time limit, her secretiveness, her sadness, her refusal to eat at expensive restaurants where temptation would be everywhere. Can I see her? Chike asked, his voice breaking. She's awake. Room 412. Chike didn't remember walking to the elevator or down the hospital corridor. He only knew that when he pushed open the door to room 412 and saw Amara lying in a hospital bed, looking small and vulnerable in a way she never had before, something inside him shattered completely. Hi, Amara said softly, attempting a weak smile. Her braids were slightly mussed, her makeup smudged, the hospital gown plain and white against her dark skin. I guess the secret's out. Chike crossed the room and sank into the chair beside her bed. Why didn't you tell me? Amara looked away, tears sliding down her cheeks. What would have been the point? You marry me for a bet, Chike. 6 months and done, remember? My health problems weren't part of the contract. That's not. Chike started, then stopped, struggling to find words. Amara, if I had known, you would have what? Amara interrupted, her voice bitter. Felt sorry for me? Treated me like I was fragile? Looked at me with pity every day? I didn't want that, Chike. I still don't. It's not pity, Chike insisted, reaching for her hand. She tried to pull away, but he held on firmly. Amara, please, tell me the truth. All of it. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at their joined hands, his large and strong, hers smaller and trembling slightly. When she finally spoke, her voice was small and broken. I was diagnosed 8 months ago. The doctor said if I didn't make significant changes, I had maybe 5 years. Maybe less. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I tried, Chike. I really tried to lose weight, to change everything. But so hard. Especially when you're alone, when you're already tired from work, when food is the only comfort you have. You're not alone anymore, Chike said immediately. Amara laughed sadly. I'm alone in 3 months. That was the deal. When Tun told me about the bet, she continued, her voice barely audible. I thought maybe for 6 months I could pretend. I could pretend someone cared about me beyond my family. I could experience what it felt like to be married, to matter to someone, even if it was fake. I know it's pathetic. It's not pathetic, Chike said fiercely. I just wanted to feel loved, Amara whispered. Even if it wasn't real. Even for just a little while. It wasn't fake, Chike said, his own eyes burning with tears he'd been holding back. Maybe it started that way, but it stopped being fake the moment I actually saw you. Really saw you. Amara pulled her hand away finally, wrapping her arms around herself. There is no we, Chike. There's 3 more months of contract, and then we both go back to our real lives. Don't make this more complicated than it needs to be. It's already complicated, Chike said desperately. Amara, I care about you. These past 3 months, you've changed something in me. I don't want to walk away in 3 months. I want to help you. I want to be here for you. I want to fight this with you. You don't mean that, Amara whispered, but Chike could hear the hope underneath the doubt. I do, he insisted. Let me prove it to you. Let me help you fight this. Please. Amara looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for something. Truth, sincerity, genuine emotion in a man who'd built an empire on calculated moves. Whatever she saw there made fresh tears spill down her cheeks. Okay, she said finally, so softly he almost didn't hear it. Okay. Chike leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, breathing in the faint scent of her shea butter hair cream. We're going to get through this together. I promise you. For the first time since their marriage began, Amara smiled at him with genuine warmth, with hope, with the beginning of trust. The next morning, Dr. Adagok returned with a comprehensive treatment plan. Weight loss through diet and exercise, continued medication, regular monitoring, and significant lifestyle changes. It will be difficult, she warned. Very difficult, but it's Amara's best chance at a long, healthy life. The good news is that you're young. Your heart is strong enough to recover with proper treatment. And early intervention means we caught this before irreversible damage occurred. We'll do whatever it takes, Chike said firmly before Amara could respond. Dr. Adagok smiled. That's exactly the support she needs, Mr. Okonkwo. Studies show that patients with strong support systems have much higher success rates. Your involvement will be crucial. After Dr. Adagok left, Chike turned to Amara. We start today. No arguments. Chike, you don't have to. Yes, I do, he interrupted. Amara, I'm not doing this because of some contract or obligation. I'm doing this because I care about you. Because somewhere in the last 3 months, you became the most important person in my life. And I'll be damned if I lose you now. Amara's eyes filled with tears again. What happened to you? Where's the arrogant businessman who married me for a bet? Chike smiled sadly. You happen to me, Amara. You show me what actually matters. Now let me show you what you mean to me. When they returned to the penthouse 3 days later, Chike had already begun transforming the space. The kitchen was stocked with healthy Nigerian foods, plenty of vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains. He'd hired a nutritionist who specialized in adapting traditional Nigerian cuisine to be healthier. He'd cleared his schedule for the next several weeks, delegating business responsibilities to trusted executives. This is too much, Amara protested, looking at all the changes. It's not enough, Chike replied. Amara, I'm going to do this with you. Every step. We're partners now, really and truly. And so began their new life together. Chike woke up at 5:30 every morning, something he'd never done willingly in his life. He and Amara would dress in matching workout clothes, brightly colored Ankara print athletic where he'd had specially made, and go for walks on the Victoria Island beach. At first, Amara could barely make it 5 minutes before she was exhausted and hurting. Chike held her hand, encouraged her, slowed his pace to match hers, celebrated every small victory. I can't do this, Amara gasped one morning, stopping to catch her breath, the Atlantic Ocean crashing beside them. It's too hard. Yes, you can, Chike said firmly, taking both her hands in his. Look at me, Amara. You are the strongest person I know. You faced everything life has thrown at you with courage and dignity. This is just one more challenge. And this time, you don't have to face it alone. Amara looked up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears, the morning sun casting gold across her face. Why are you doing this? Really? Chike cupped her face gently, his thumbs brushing away the sweat from her cheeks. Because I try to continue love you. I think I've been falling in love with you since the moment you walked into that cafe and called me out on my arrogance. Because you're brilliant and kind and you see people, really see them. Because when I look at you, I see my future, and that future needs you healthy and by my side. You love me, Amara whispered, as if she couldn't believe the words. I love you, Chai confirmed. Not the woman I thought I was marrying. Not some temporary arrangement. You, Amara. Exactly as you are. And I'm going to spend every day proving it to you. They stood there on Victoria Island Beach as the sun rose over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Amara finally, tentatively, leaned up and kissed him. It was their first real kiss, soft and sweet and full of promise, tasting of salt from the ocean and tears of hope. When they pulled apart, Chike saw something blooming in Amara's eyes that he'd never seen before. Hope. Real hope for a future she'd thought was slipping away. The weeks that followed were hard. Harder than any business deal Chike had ever negotiated, more challenging than building his empire from nothing. Amara struggled with the diet changes, with giving up the foods that had been her comfort. She struggled with the constant exercise, with the physical and emotional challenges of transforming her life. There were days when she wanted to give up, days when she cried for frustration and pain, days when the scale didn't move and the effort seemed pointless. But Chike was there for all of it. He changed his own diet to match hers, even though he didn't need to. He gave up his beloved suya and excess jollof rice, his late-night snacks and business dinners at expensive restaurants. He woke up early to exercise with her every single day, rain or shine. When she wanted to quit, he reminded her why she was fighting. When she felt discouraged, he showed her the small victories, the pounds lost, the distance walked, the improvements in her energy and mood. They cooked together in the evenings, experimenting with healthy versions of Nigerian dishes. They learned to make egusi soup with less oil, jollof rice with brown rice, and more vegetables, grilled fish instead of fried. Chike discovered he actually enjoyed cooking, enjoyed the simple domestic activity of preparing meals with Amara, of laughing at their mistakes, and celebrating their successes. Who would have thought, Amara said one evening as they prepared moi together, that the great Chike Okonkwo would be in his kitchen, grinding beans? Who would have thought, Chike replied, stealing a kiss, that I could be this happy, doing something so simple. Amara taught him how to see joy in ordinary moments, how to value experiences over possessions, how to find meaning in helping others rather than just accumulating wealth. He started joining her at the youth center in Ajagunle on weekends, playing football with the children, helping repair broken equipment, contributing not just money but time and presence. The children loved him, especially when he showed up in casual clothes instead of his usual expensive agbatis. Uncle Chike, they would shout, running to greet him. And Chike, who had once thought children were noisy distractions, found himself looking forward to those weekends more than any business meeting. 4 months into their marriage, Chike took Amara to another charity gala, the annual Nigerian Heart Foundation fundraiser. This time, everything was different. Amara wore a stunning dress she'd designed herself with her favorite tailor in Balogun Market, a modern take on traditional Igbo attire in deep purple and gold Ankara, fitted to show off the 40 pounds she'd lost. But more importantly, she wore confidence. Her hair was braided in an intricate pattern with golden beads. Her makeup was flawless, and her traditional coral and gold jewelry gleamed against her skin. She walked into that ballroom at Eco Hotel with her head high, Chike's hand in hers, and she was absolutely radiant. Not because she was thinner, but because she was healthier, happier, more confident in herself. People noticed. The same society women who had gossiped about her before now tried to compliment her transformation. Amara handled them with grace and dignity, neither accepting their false praise nor stooping to their level. "You look beautiful," one woman said, the same one who had made cruel comments months before. "You must give me the name of your trainer." "Thank you," Amara said simply. "But it's not about trainers or quick fixes. It's about having someone who loves you enough to walk beside you through the hard parts." She smiled up at Chike, and he felt his heart swell with pride and love. Later, as they danced together, Chike expertly leading her through a slow high-life rhythm, he whispered, "I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of me too," Amara replied with a genuine smile. "But I couldn't have done it without you, Chike. You saved my life." "We saved each other," Chike said, pulling her closer. "You saved me from being an empty, arrogant shell of a man. I was rich but poor in everything that mattered." "Look at you being philosophical," Amara teased, resting her head on his chest as they swayed. "Who are you, and what have you done with Chike Okonkwo?" "He's gone," Chike said softly. "Good riddance to him. The man dancing with you now is someone better. Someone you made better." They stayed on the dance floor, talking about everything and nothing, making plans for the future, dreaming about years to come. Around them, Lagos's elite watched and whispered, but neither Chike nor Amara cared. They had found something more valuable than any amount of money or social approval. But their journey wasn't over. As they approached the 6-month mark of their marriage, the anniversary of their contract's end, Amara had another health scare. Chike came home from a meeting to find Amara collapsed on the bathroom floor, her face pale and her breathing labored. Terror gripped his heart as violently as it had the first time. He called for an ambulance, held her, begged her to stay with him, followed her to the same hospital where this had all become real months before. Dr. Adagok met him in the waiting room, her expression serious, and Chike felt his world tilting. He prepared for the worst news, for the universe to take away the woman who had become his everything. "Mr. Okonkwo," Dr. Adagok began, and Chike's heart stopped. "I need to talk to you about Amara's condition." "Just tell me," Chike said, his voice breaking. "Whatever it is, just tell me." Dr. Adagok's serious expression suddenly broke into a broad smile. "She's going to be fine, Mr. Okonkwo. Better than fine, actually." Chike blinked, confused. "What?" Amara collapsed from exhaustion and low blood sugar. "Nothing more," Dr. Adagok explained, her smile growing wider. "We ran comprehensive tests. Her blood pressure is significantly improved. Her heart function has increased by nearly 35%. She's lost over 60 pounds, and all her health markers are moving in the right direction. Mr. Okonkwo, whatever you two have been doing, it's working beautifully." She pulled out a chart, showing him the numbers that Chike didn't fully understand but knew were good. If she continues on this path, maintains her current lifestyle, keeps working with her medical team, and continues to be careful, Amara's prognosis is excellent. She could live a completely normal, full lifespan. There's no reason she can't have a long, healthy life. Chike felt his legs give out. He sank into a chair, his hands covering his face. "She's going to be okay. She's going to be okay," Dr. Adagok confirmed, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You both did this. Your support made all the difference." Chike dropped his face into his hands and wept. All the fear, all the stress, all the love he'd been carrying for months came pouring out. He cried in that hospital waiting room, not caring who saw, not caring about his image or reputation. He cried because the woman he loved was going to live, was going to have a future, was going to grow old with him. When he was finally allowed to see her, Chike found Amara awake and apologetic, and four in her arm, but color returning to her face. "I'm sorry I scared you," she said immediately. "I just pushed too hard at the gym today and forgot to eat enough after. Dr. Adagok says I need to be better about." Chike crossed the room and kissed her, cutting off her words. When he pulled back, he was smiling through his tears, his hands framing her face. "You're going to be okay," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Dr. Adagok said you're going to be okay. Your heart is stronger. Your numbers are all improving. You're doing it, Amara. You're beating this." Amara's eyes widened, filling with tears. "Really? Really? Really?" Chai confirmed. Your heart function is up 35%. You could live a completely normal, full life. You're going to be okay. Amara started crying too, and Chai held her as they both processed the news. After months of fear and uncertainty, after living under the shadow of a death sentence, they finally had hope. Real, solid hope. Chike, Amara said when they'd both calmed down, her voice tentative. Our 6 months are up next week. Chike tensed. He'd been trying not to think about that, about the contract that had brought them together. I know. So what happens now? Amara asked, searching his face with those intelligent eyes that had captivated him from the first day. Chike took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Now you marry me again. For real this time. No baits, no contracts, no inspiración daches. Just you and me and the rest of our lives together. Are you proposing to me in a hospital room? Amara asked, laughing through her tears. I'm proposing to you everywhere, every day, until you say yes, Chike replied. He stood up, then got down on one knee beside her hospital bed, pulling out a ring he'd been carrying for weeks. A beautiful piece he'd had custom-made by a Nigerian jeweler, featuring traditional Igbo design elements with a stunning diamond. Amara Nwosu, you changed my life. You taught me what actually matters. You showed me that some things can't be bought or won. They can only be earned through dedication and love. And I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. Will you marry me? Really marry me? Not for 6 months, but forever. Amara was crying openly now, nodding before she could speak. Yes. Yes, Chike. I'll marry you. Really marry you. Chike slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her again. This kiss full of promise and future and love that had been earned through hardship and transformation. 6 months after their business arrangement wedding, they had a real ceremony. It was a proper Igbo traditional wedding, held at Amara's family compound in Enugu. The entire village seemed to have turned out, along with friends and family from Lagos. The celebration lasted 3 days, as proper Nigerian weddings should. The first day was the traditional wine-carrying ceremony, where Amara, dressed in multiple layers of gorgeous coral and gold George fabric, with an elaborate geli that towered like a crown, searched through the crowd to find Chike and present him with palm wine. When she finally spotted him among his groomsmen, all wearing matching blue and gold abatas, the crowd erupted in cheers and music. The second day was the white wedding at a beautiful church overlooking the hills of Enugu. Amara wore a stunning white ball gown with traditional Igbo embroidery and beading, looking like the queen she was. Chike couldn't take his eyes off her, not because of how much weight she'd lost, but because of the joy radiating from her, the health and happiness that glowed from within, the love that shone in her eyes when she looked at him. Tun stood as Chike's best man, admitting with good humor that he'd lost the bet, but gained the satisfaction of seeing his friend become a better man. I knew from the first moment I saw you two together, Tun said in his speech, that this wasn't going to end the way Chike expected. I saw him look at her, like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. I knew he was in trouble. When the priest asked if anyone objected to the marriage, the entire crowd laughed because everyone there knew this was the most right thing in the world. These two people who had found each other through manipulation and a bet had created something real and beautiful and lasting. The third day was the reception, a massive outdoor celebration with live highlife and Afrobeats music, tables laden with Nigerian delicacies, healthy versions of everything carefully prepared, and traditional dancers who put on spectacular performances. Amara's family wore matching pink and gold ankara. Chike's family wore green and gold, and the mixing of the families felt like the joining of kingdoms. As they shared their first dance as a truly married couple, swaying to flavors all aloof, Chike thought about the arrogant man he'd been just months before. That man would never have understood this joy, this contentment, this deep and abiding love. What are you thinking about? Amara asked, her head resting on his chest as they moved together, her elaborate gold jewelry catching the late afternoon sun. I'm thinking about how I made the best bet of my life, Chike replied, even if I didn't know it at the time. Amara laughed. You lost that bet, remember? You never paid Tun the $2 billion. No, Chike said, pulling back to look in her eyes. I won. I won you. I won this life. I won everything that actually matters. We both won. Amara corrected softly. We both won, Chike agreed. As they continued dancing, surrounded by hundreds of people who loved them, under the warm Nigerian sun, Chike Okonkwo knew that for the first time in his life, he had truly won at something that mattered. Not through manipulation or money or arrogance, but through love, commitment, and the willingness to change. 5 years later, Chike and Amara stood in the nursery of their new home in Ikoyi, looking down at their newborn daughter sleeping peacefully in her crib. They named her Chioma, Good God, because that's what they felt every day, gratitude to God for the path that had brought them together. Amara's health had continued to improve dramatically. She'd lost a total of 90 pounds and stabilized at a healthy weight that her doctors celebrated. Her heart was strong, her blood pressure normal, all her markers perfect. More importantly, she was happy, fulfilled, and thriving. Chike had changed too, in ways that went beyond his relationship with Amara. He'd become more involved in philanthropy, particularly health initiatives. Together, he and Amara had started the Second Chance Foundation, dedicated to helping people access the resources they needed for health transformations, providing free nutritionists, trainers, medical care, and mental health support to those who couldn't afford it. The foundation operated centers across Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt, helping thousands of people every year. Who would have thought? Amara said softly, adjusting the pink and gold Ankara blanket over their daughter, that a stupid bet would lead to all this? It wasn't stupid, Chike replied, wrapping his arm around his wife's waist. It was fate disguised as stupidity. Chioma yawned in her sleep, her tiny fingers curling and uncurling. Chike felt his heart swell with love, so intense, it was almost painful. This was his life now. Not the empty penthouse with its expensive artwork and cold marble, but this warm nursery with its hand-painted murals of African folk tales, with a woman he loved and the daughter they'd created together. Do you ever think about that first day in the cafe? Chike asked, when you sat down and told me you knew everything? Every day, Amara admitted, leaning into him. I was so scared. I actually agreed to marry a stranger because I thought I was dying and wanted to feel loved, even if it was fake. I can't believe I was that desperate. You weren't desperate, Chike said firmly. You were human, and you were braver than I ever was. You walked into that cafe knowing the truth and agreed anyway because you wanted to experience love before you died. That's courage, Amara. It wasn't fake though, Amara said. Maybe it started that way, but it stopped being fake the moment you defended me at that first gala. When you stood up for me in front of all those people, I realized you actually saw me. Not my size, not my health problems, not the bet, just me. For me, it was in the hospital, Chike confessed. When I realized you might die, and I hadn't even known you were sick. I felt this terror I'd never experienced before. That's when I knew I loved you. That's when I knew this wasn't a game anymore. Chioma made a small sound, and Chike gently rocked the crib. Outside, Lagos hummed with its endless energy, car horns and music, and the sound of millions of people living their lives. Chike, I need to tell you something. Amara's voice turned serious. His heart skipped, old fears rising. What's wrong? Are you okay? I'm better than okay, Amara smiled. I saw Dr. Adagok last week for my annual checkup. My heart function is completely normal, better than normal. Actually, all my markers are perfect. She said if she didn't know my history, she'd never guess I'd had health problems. Based on my current trajectory, there's no medical reason I shouldn't live a completely normal, full lifespan. I could live to be 90, Chike. 90 years old. Chike felt tears prickling his eyes. He carefully pulled Amara away from the crib and into the hallway, then wrapped her in his arms and held her tight, his face buried in her braids that smelled of coconut oil and home. You did it, he whispered. You beat it. You're going to grow old with me. We did it, Amara corrected, pulling back to look at him. I never could have done this alone. You saved my life, Chike. You saved mine, he replied. I was rich and successful and completely empty. You taught me how to actually live. They stood in the hallway, holding each other, processing what they'd overcome together. 5 years ago, Amara had been given a grim prognosis and 5 years to live. 5 years ago, Chike had measured success in Naira and acquisitions. Now they were healthy, whole, parents, and deeply, irrevocably in love. "I have a confession," Chike said. "I paid Ton back the $2 billion from the bet, with interest in $2.5 billion total." Amara's eyes widened. "When? What?" "About 2 years ago, after Chioma was born. I couldn't stand that our marriage started as a financial transaction. I paid him back every kobo, plus extra. He donated the entire amount to our foundation and matched it himself. So really he paid in $5 billion total to our cause." Amara laughed, shaking her head. "That sounds like Tund. Speaking of which, did you hear his news? About Rachel? That they're getting married?" "Not just that," Amara said, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "He's doing a traditional Yoruba wedding. Full 3-day ceremony. He's terrified." "Good," Chike grinned. "He deserves to be terrified. Marriage should terrify you. It means you finally have something to lose." They checked on Chioma one more time before heading to their bedroom. Amara had to pump milk, and Chike sat beside her, their evening ritual of talking about their day. "The foundation reached 10,000 people this year," Amara said. 10,000 people who got the help they needed to transform their health. "Can you believe it?" "I can believe it, because I'm looking at the woman who made it possible," Chike replied. "Your vision, your passion, your understanding of what people actually need. That's why it works." "Your money helps too," Amara teased. "Our money," Chike corrected. "Everything I have is ours. You know that." After Amara finished pumping, they lay in bed together, talking in the darkness. This was Chike's favorite time of day. No business calls, no foundation meetings, no demands on their time. Just the two of them, discussing everything and nothing. "Chike, can I ask you something?" Amara's voice was thoughtful. "Do you ever regret how we started? The lie, the bet, the manipulation?" Chike considered carefully. "I regret that you felt you had to hide your illness from me at first. I regret that you thought I wouldn't care if I knew the truth. But regret the bet itself? No, because without it, I never would have met you. I would have continued dating models who didn't challenge me, making money I didn't need, living a life that didn't matter." "That's very philosophical for a man who once told me that money was the only thing that mattered," Amara said. "That man was an idiot," Chike replied. "You killed him. Good riddance." Amara shifted closer, resting her head on his chest. "I was so angry when I first found out I was sick. I kept thinking, this isn't fair. I'm only 30. I help people. I try to be good. Why me? I was angry at God, angry at my body, angry at the world. And now," Chike asked softly. "Now I'm grateful," Amara said, "because being sick led me to accept Tun's crazy proposal, which led me to you, which led me to actually fighting to live instead of giving up. If I hadn't gotten sick, I might never have found this life, this love, our daughter. I might have just kept going through the motions, slowly killing myself, and never known what I was missing." Chike kissed the top of her head. "God works in mysterious ways, even through manipulative friends and arrogant billionaires." They lay in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of Lagos at night through their open window, distant music, the call of night birds, the hum of the city that never truly slept. "Tun's coming over tomorrow," Chike said. "He wants to talk about the wedding. Apparently, Rachel's family has some specific traditional requirements he's nervous about." "Good," Amara said. "He should be nervous. He's finally found someone who won't put up with his schemes and manipulations. Rachel sees right through him." "She reminds me of you," Chike observed. "The way she calls him out on his nonsense. The way she's not impressed by his money." "All women aren't impressed by money once they grow up," Amara said. "We want partners, not ATM machines. We want someone who sees us, really sees us." "I see you," Chike whispered. "I see you every day, and every day I fall more in love with what I see." "Sweet talker," Amara murmured, but he could hear the smile in her voice. The next day, Tund arrived at their home in the late afternoon, looking uncharacteristically nervous. He wore a simple white shirt and jeans instead of his usual expensive agbada, and his face showed the strain of a man in love for the first time in his life. "Thank you for seeing me," he said as they settled in the living room. Chioma was awake, and Amara held her, bouncing her gently while Tund fidgeted with his phone. "Your family, Tund," Amara said warmly. "You're always welcome here. You're Chioma's godfather. This is your home too." Tund smiled at that, then took a deep breath. "I need to talk about the bet. The truth about why I really made it." Chike and Amara exchanged glances. They discussed this before, how the bet had come to be, why Tund had done it. But they'd never pressed him for the full truth. "I thought you made it because you wanted to challenge Chike," Amara said carefully. "Because you were worried about him becoming someone you didn't recognize." "That was part of it," Tund admitted. "But there's more. Amara, we met before the bet. About a year before, at a literacy program fundraiser. Do you remember?" Amara's brow furrowed. "That was you? I thought you looked familiar, but it was such a brief conversation." "We talked for maybe 5 minutes, Tund said. "But that conversation stayed with me. You were so passionate about helping children learn to read, about breaking cycles of poverty through education. You mentioned dealing with health issues, but you made a joke about it, try to brush it off. But I saw the fear in your eyes." Chike leaned forward. "What does this have to do with the bet?" "A few months after that fundraiser, I ran into your mother at LUTH, Lagos University Teaching Hospital," Tund continued, looking at Amara. "She was upset, crying in the waiting area. I recognized her from photos in your office. We talked, and she told me about your diagnosis, about how you were struggling alone, about how she was terrified of losing you. She said you were giving up, slowly, and she didn't know how to help you fight." Amara's hand flew to her mouth. "My mother knew. She knew you were going to introduce me to Chike. She didn't know specifics," Tund said quickly. "But she knew I was going to try something. She was desperate, Amara. She saw her daughter slowly dying and felt helpless." Chike felt anger stirring in his chest. "So, this was all manipulation? You played God with our lives." "Yes," Tund admitted, meeting Chike's eyes steadily. "And I'm not sorry. I gambled that if I threw you two together, the most arrogant man I knew and the most genuine woman I'd ever met, something might happen. I was right. But what if you'd been wrong?" Amara demanded, her voice sharp. "What if Chike had treated me badly? What if it had ended in disaster?" "I had a backup plan," Tund said. "If Chike had treated you badly, I would have ended it immediately and paid for all your medical treatment myself. Every cost, every expense, every procedure you needed. I was watching always. But from the very first meeting, I saw something change in Chike's eyes. I saw him look at you like you were a puzzle he couldn't solve, like you'd knocked him off balance. I knew then that my gamble might actually work." Chike walked to the window, looking out at their garden where hibiscus flowers bloomed in vibrant reds and oranges. "You played God with our lives, Tund. You manipulated us both." "I did," Tund agreed. "And I'd do it again. Look at your lives now compared to 5 years ago, Chike. Look at your daughter. Look at Amara, healthy and alive when she might not have been. Look at yourself, actually happy instead of just rich. Tell me honestly that you wish I hadn't made that bet." Chike couldn't deny the truth, much as he wanted to in that moment. He looked at Amara, holding their daughter, healthy and beautiful and alive. He looked at the life they'd built, the love they'd found, the family they'd created. "I don't wish that," he admitted finally. "But you should have told us sooner. The longer you wait to reveal a manipulation, the worse it becomes." "Why tell us now?" Amara asked, her voice softer than before. Tund's expression softened, and suddenly he looked younger, more vulnerable than they'd ever seen him. "Because I met someone. Rachel. She's a teacher, tough, smart, doesn't care about my money. She calls me out on my manipulation and scheming. For the first time in my life, I'm terrified because I actually care what she thinks of me. I want to know, how do you stop being afraid of being vulnerable?" Amara walked over to Tund, Chioma still in her arms. "What you did was manipulative and dishonest. It was also possibly saved my life, maybe saved both our lives. I'm angry and grateful and confused all at the same time. But I understand why you did it. Fear makes us do crazy things. The truth is always better than manipulation," Chike said, turning from the window. "If you care about Rachel, if you really love her, tell her the truth. All of it. Don't try to control the situation, or scheme your way to a happy ending. Just be honest and vulnerable and let her choose you for who you really are. That's terrifying, Tund admitted. Love is terrifying, Amara agreed. It's also worth it. Every scary moment, every time you have to be vulnerable, every time you risk being hurt, it's worth it for what you get in return. Even when it starts with a manipulative bet. Tund asked. Even then, Chai confirmed. But Tund, I need you to promise us something. No more secrets, no more manipulation. If you're going to be in our lives, in Chioma's life, you need to promise honesty. Can you do that? I promise, Tund said solemnly. And I'm sorry. For the manipulation, for the lies, for playing with your lives like pieces on a chessboard. I'm sorry. Stay for dinner, Amara said. Tell us about Rachel. Let's start fresh with honesty. They spent the evening together, Tund talking about Rachel with a vulnerability they'd never seen from him before. She was a mathematics teacher at a public school, passionate about education reform, completely unimpressed by his wealth or status. She'd made him volunteer at her school for weeks before agreeing to go on a date with him. She challenged him, called him out, refused to let him hide behind money or charm. She sounds perfect for you, Amara said, laughing at Tund's obvious discomfort with how much he cared. She's terrifying, Tund admitted. She sees right through me. I can't manipulate her, or charm her, or buy her affection. I just have to be myself. And I'm not sure myself is good enough. That's exactly how I felt about Amara, Chike said, reaching for his wife's hand. That's how you know it's real. When you're afraid you're not good enough, but you want to become better anyway. Later, after Tund left and Chioma was asleep again, Chike and Amara sat on their balcony. The Lagos night was warm, heavy with moisture that promised rain. They could hear music drifting from a nearby house, the eternal soundtrack of their city. Are you angry? Chike asked. About what Tund did? About your mother being involved? I was at first, Amara admitted. But then I thought about it. My mother watched me slowly giving up on life. She saw me accepting death at 31 years old. What parent could watch that and not do anything, even something desperate? She loved you enough to scheme, Chike observed. She loved me enough to take a risk, Amara corrected. She trusted Tund's judgment, trusted that somehow it might work out. And she was right. They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined. Inside, they could hear Chioma making small sounds through the baby monitor before settling back to sleep. You know what I realized today? Chike said. I don't care how we started anymore. Whether it was fate or manipulation or dumb luck, it doesn't matter. What we have now is real. What we've built together is real. The rest is just history, just a story we tell. Amara squeezed his hand. That's very wise for a former arrogant billionaire. I learned from the best, Chike replied, bringing her hand to his lips and kissing it gently. They stayed on the balcony, talking until late into the night, making plans for the foundation's expansion, discussing Chioma's dedication ceremony they were planning, dreaming about the future. When they finally went inside, Chike paused at Chioma's nursery door, watching his daughter sleep in the soft glow of a nightlight shaped like an African moon. 5 years ago, he had accepted a bet, thinking it was just another game to win, another competition to dominate. He had no idea that bet would destroy his entire world and rebuild it into something infinitely better. He had bet on controlling a situation and lost control of everything. He had bet on maintaining his arrogance and found humility. He had bet on winning in 2 billion and lost his heart completely. And in losing, he had won everything that actually mattered. Amara appeared beside him, slipping her arm around his waist. Together, they watched their daughter breathe, this precious life they'd created together. No regrets, Amara whispered. Not a single one, Chike agreed. And he meant it. Every manipulated moment, every painful revelation, every health scare, every difficult transformation, he would do it all again if it meant ending up here. Right here, with this woman and this child and this life that had meaning beyond money or status or pride. The bet had changed everything. Chike Okonkwo, the man who once thought he could win at anything, had finally learned the most important lesson. Sometimes the best victories come from surrendering completely. He followed Amara to bed, ready to wake up tomorrow and continue building the life they'd fought to create, a life built on truth, on love, on transformation. A life that had started with a bet, but had become so much more. Everything that actually mattered. Outside, Lagos continued its eternal rhythm. Inside, a family slept peacefully, bound together by love that had been tested by fire and emerged stronger. Tomorrow would bring continued challenges, new joys, new opportunities to prove that love was more than just a feeling. It was a choice made every single day. And as Chaik drifted off to sleep with Amara in his arms, he smiled, knowing that every day for the rest of his life, he would choose her. Always her. Forever her. The Second Chance Foundation's annual gala had become one of Lagos's most anticipated events. Not for the spectacle or the opportunity to show off wealth, but because it represented something real. Every year, the foundation honored people who had transformed their lives, who had taken second chances and built something beautiful from them. This year's gala was held at the Eco Convention Center, and the ballroom was packed with over 1,000 guests. Unlike the stuffy charity events of old Lagos, this celebration pulsed with life. Afrobeats music, vibrant Ankara fashion everywhere, laughter and genuine joy filling the space. Chaik stood backstage, adjusting his royal blue agbada embroidered with gold thread. At 46, he was still handsome, still successful, but the arrogance that once defined him had been replaced by something deeper: contentment, purpose, genuine happiness. "Daddy, your geli is crooked," a voice said behind him. He turned to see his daughter Chioma, now 5 years old, wearing a miniature version of her mother's dress, purple and gold Ankara with elaborate beading. She was beautiful, intelligent, and had inherited both her mother's kindness and her father's determination. "I'm not wearing a geli, princess," Chaik laughed, picking her up. "That's mommy's head wrap." "Then your fila is crooked," Chioma corrected, reaching up to adjust his traditional cap. "There, now you look like a proper king." "Thank you, my queen," Chaik said, kissing her forehead. Amara appeared, looking absolutely radiant in a stunning purple and gold traditional Igbo outfit. At 41, she was healthy, vibrant, and more beautiful than ever. She'd maintained her weight loss for 10 years now. But more importantly, she'd maintained her health, her joy, her passion for helping others. "Are you ready?" she asked, taking Chaik's free hand while Chioma wrapped her arms around his neck. "Always ready when I'm with you," Chaik replied. They walked out onto the stage together as a family, and the crowd erupted in applause. This was what the foundation represented. Not just health transformation, but family, love, and second chances. Chaik took the microphone first. 10 years ago, I was a different man. I was rich, but empty, successful, but meaningless, surrounded by people, but completely alone. I thought winning meant having the most money, the biggest deals, the most power. I was wrong about everything. He looked at Amara, his eyes filled with love. 10 years ago, I made a bet. I thought it was about proving I could control any situation, win any game. Instead, that bet destroyed my old life and gave me a real one. It brought me this woman, my wife, my partner, my best friend, the woman who saved my life by showing me what life was actually for. Amara took the microphone next. Chioma still in Chaik's arms, watching her mother with adoring eyes. 10 years ago, I was dying. Not just physically, though my health was failing. I was dying inside because I'd given up hope. I'd accepted that I would die young, alone, unmourned except by my family. I agreed to a fake marriage because I wanted to feel loved, even if it was pretend, before I died. Her voice grew stronger. But it wasn't pretend. This man, this formerly arrogant, impossible man, loved me enough to fight for my life when I'd stopped fighting for myself. He loved me enough to wake up at 5:30 every morning and walk with me when I could barely make it 5 minutes. He loved me enough to change his entire life, so I could have a life at all. She reached for Chaik's hand. We started the Second Chance Foundation because we both got second chances. Chaik got a second chance to be a man of purpose instead of just a man of wealth. I got a second chance at life itself, and we wanted to give that gift to others. The screen behind them lit up with statistics. Over 50,000 people helped in 10 years. Thousands of lives saved through health interventions. Hundreds of families transformed. Educational programs, medical care, nutritional support, mental health services, all provided free to those who needed them most. And the screen showed faces, real people whose lives had changed. Mothers who could now run and play with their children. Fathers who had survived heart disease and lived to see their grandchildren. Young people who had overcome diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and other health challenges. Each face told a story of transformation, of second chances taken and lives reclaimed. Tonight, we honor 5 individuals who represent what this foundation is about. Amara continued. People who looked at their circumstances and said no more. People who chose life, chose change, chose hope. One by one, the honorees came forward. Each told their story, stories of struggle and triumph, of hitting bottom and climbing back up, of finding support when they needed it most. The audience listened, many with tears streaming down their faces, because these weren't distant statistics. These are their neighbors, their family members, their friends. These were people they knew. The final honoree was a woman named Ngozi, 63 years old, who had lost 150 pounds over 3 years after being diagnosed with heart disease and diabetes. She had been on the verge of death, unable to walk more than a few steps without gasping for air. Now she ran 5K races and volunteered at the foundation, helping others begin their own journeys. Mrs. Amara saved my life, Ngozi said, her voice strong despite her tears. Not with money, though the foundation paid for my medical care when I couldn't afford it. She saved my life by seeing me, really seeing me, not as a fat woman who had failed, but as a person who was struggling and needed help. She walked beside me, literally walked beside me every morning for months until I could walk on my own. She showed me that transformation was possible. Ngozi turned to face Amara directly. You gave me back my life. You gave me the chance to meet my grandchildren, to dance at my daughter's wedding, to see another sunrise. How do you thank someone for that? Amara was crying openly now, and Chaik wrapped his free arm around her shoulders while still holding Chioma. This was why they did this work. Not for recognition or praise, but for moments like this. For lives saved and futures reclaimed. After the ceremony, as the celebration continued with music and dancing, Chaik found a quiet moment with Tund and Rachel in one of the side rooms. Tund and Rachel had been married for 8 years now, and they had 2 children of their own, twin boys who were currently running wild somewhere in the ballroom with Chioma. I never thanked you properly, Chaik said to Tund. For the bet. For seeing something in both of us that we couldn't see ourselves. Tund smiled, looking more relaxed and genuine than Chaik had ever seen him in their youth. Marriage to Rachel had changed him, softened his edges while maintaining his sharp mind. You thanked me by becoming a better man. By building this. He gestured toward the ballroom, where hundreds of people celebrated transformation and hope. This foundation has saved more lives than we'll ever know. That's thanks enough. Still, Chaik insisted. You took a crazy risk. It could have ended in disaster. But it didn't, Rachel interjected. She was a striking woman in a bold red Ankara dress, her natural hair styled in beautiful locks. It ended exactly as it was meant to. Some people believe in fate. Some believe in God's plan. Some believe in luck. I believe in love. Real love transforms everything it touches. Spoken like a true romantic, Tund teased, pulling his wife close. Says the man who cried at our wedding. Rachel shot back with a grin. I had something in my eye. Tund protested, making them all laugh. Amara appeared with Chioma and the twins in tow. The children are demanding their fathers come dance. Apparently, we old people are embarrassing them by sitting down. Old people, Chaik exclaimed, taking Chioma's hand. I'll show you old people. Come on, everyone. Let's show these children how Lagos people really dance. They returned to the ballroom, and soon the entire gala had transformed into a proper Nigerian party. The carefully planned program gave way to spontaneous joy. People dancing to Wizkid and Burna Boy, children running between adults' legs, laughter echoing off the high ceilings. Chaik danced with Amara, their movements perfectly synchronized after 10 years together. He spun her around, and she laughed, the sound more beautiful than any music. Chioma danced between them, her little face serious with concentration as she tried to copy her parents' moves. "This is what I imagined," Amara said during a slower song, her head resting on Chaik's chest. "When I was sick and thought I was dying, I used to imagine moments like this. Being healthy enough to dance, being loved enough to laugh, being alive enough to actually live. I never thought it would actually happen." "It happened because you're a fighter," Chaik replied. "Because you didn't give up, even when giving up would have been easier." "I had help," Amara said, looking up at him. "I had you. We had each other," Chaik corrected. "That's how it works. That's how it's supposed to work." As the night wore on, Chaik found himself standing at the edge of the ballroom, watching the celebration with deep satisfaction. Tund joined him, 2 bottles of star beer in hand. "Thinking deep thoughts?" Tund asked, offering him one of the beers. "Just thinking about how far we've come," Chaik said, accepting the drink. 10 years ago, I was standing in my penthouse, accepting your bet, thinking I was about to win into billion and prove once again that I could conquer anything. And instead, you lost into billion, lost your arrogance, lost your entire identity," Tund said with a grin. "Worst bet ever." "Best bet ever," Chaik corrected. "I lost everything that didn't matter and gained everything that did." They stood in comfortable silence, watching their wives laugh together while their children played. This was success, not the empty penthouse, not the expensive cars, not the power and status. This warmth, this love, this community of people helping each other become better. This was what winning actually looked like. "Chaik," Tund said quietly, "do you remember what you said to me the night of the bet? You said you'd never been afraid of anything in your life." "I remember. I was an idiot." "You were," Tund agreed. "But I'm curious. What are you afraid of now?" Chaik looked across the room at Amara, who was helping Chioma with her dress, her face glowing with happiness and health. "I'm afraid of losing this. Losing her. Losing any of this. Every day, I wake up and think, what if this is all taken away?" "That fear never goes away." "Good," Tund said. "That fear means you know what you have is precious. That fear keeps you from taking it for granted." "When did you become so wise?" Chaik asked with a smile. "Marriage," Tund replied simply. "Rachel teaches me something new every day. Mostly she teaches me how little I actually know." They both laughed, and Chaik felt grateful for this friendship that had survived competition, manipulation, and transformation. Tund had seen him at his worst and helped push him toward his best. That was what real friendship looked like. As the gala wound down and guests began leaving, thanking Chaik and Amara for their work and their inspiration, one elderly woman stopped to speak with them. She wore traditional Yoruba attire and had kind eyes that had seen many years. "Mr. and Mrs. Okonkwo," she said, taking both their hands. "Iya Mama Adun. My granddaughter was helped by your foundation last year. She lost 80 pounds and reversed her diabetes. She is now in university, studying to become a nurse, so she can help others the way she was helped." "That's wonderful," Amara said warmly. "What's her name? I'd love to follow her progress." "Blessing Aduni," the woman said. "But I didn't come to talk about her. I can talk about you. I am a priestess of Ifa, and I see things. I saw something in both of you when you walked on that stage tonight." Chaik and Amara exchanged glances, unsure where this was going. 10 years ago, you were both dying," Mama Aduni continued. "You, Mrs. Okonkwo, were dying in body. You, Mr. Okonkwo, were dying in spirit. The ancestors brought you together not by chance, not by bet, but by destiny. You were meant to save each other. And in saving each other, you were meant to save many others." She squeezed their hands gently. "Your daughter, Chioma, her name means good God, but also means God's gift. She is a gift not just to you, but to this world. She carries both of your strengths. Raise her well, teach her to see people as you have learned to see them, and she will do great things." Before either could respond, Mama Aduni smiled and walked away, leaving them standing in the now empty ballroom, her words hanging in the air like a blessing. "Did that just happen?" Chaik asked. "In Lagos, anything can happen," Amara replied with a smile. "Priestesses, prophecies, miracles. This is Nigeria. We believe in things that can't be explained." They found Chioma asleep on a chair, exhausted from dancing. Chike picked her up gently, and she stirred slightly, mumbling "Daddy," before settling back to sleep against his chest. "Let's go home," Amara said, taking Chike's free hand. The drive back to Ikoyi was quiet, Lagos at its most peaceful in the late hours after midnight. Chioma slept between them in the back seat while their driver navigated the empty streets. Chike and Amara held hands, fingers intertwined, no words necessary. At home, they put Chioma to bed together, a nightly ritual they both cherished. Chike tucked the blanket around her while Amara adjusted the mosquito net. They stood together at her doorway for a moment, watching her sleep. "Do you think what Mama Adunni said is true?" Chike whispered. "About destiny?" "I don't know," Amara admitted. "But I know that somehow, against all odds, we found each other. And whether that was destiny or luck or manipulation or God, it doesn't matter. What matters is what we did with it." They moved to their own bedroom, going through their nighttime routine with the comfortable familiarity of 10 years together. Amara removed her jewelry piece by piece, each item carefully placed in her jewelry box. Chike hung up his agbada, already planning tomorrow's foundation meetings. In bed, they lay facing each other in the darkness, able to see each other's outlines in the moonlight streaming through the window. "Chike," Amara said softly, "do you ever think about the life you could have had? If you hadn't accepted the bet, you could have married some society woman, had a proper Lagos marriage, kept your old lifestyle." "Never," Chike said firmly. "That life was a prison I didn't even know I was in. You freed me, Amara. You showed me what it meant to actually live instead of just existing. Every single day, I'm grateful for that bet. Grateful for tons manipulation. Grateful for everything that brought us together. Even my illness?" Amara asked quietly. "Even that," Chike said, reaching for her hand. "Because your illness taught you to fight, taught you to value life, taught you to see what actually matters. And then you taught me. We both had to be broken before we could be whole together." Amara moved closer, resting her head on his chest. "I love you, Chike Okonkwo, more than I thought it was possible to love anyone." "I love you, Amara Okonkwo," Chike replied, kissing the top of her head. "More than winning, more than money, more than my own life. You and Chioma, you're everything." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms. Two people who had found each other through the strangest circumstances and built something beautiful from the wreckage of their old lives.